different. We won't even know. But that's good. Well, I have to know, how did you get into training Mustangs? Did you train horses before?
Yeah, yeah. My family, my dad and my uncle started a business down here in Colorado called Sombrero Ranches, and we had like 1,500 head of dude horses.
Wow.
And so right out of high school, I went to work for them, and we just were continually starting colts and putting them into the dude strings in the stable business.
Wow.
And then back in the early 80s, it was probably like 81 or 82.
Okay.
Because the wild horse law went into effect in 1971.
Right.
And out here in the West, there were a lot of ranches that ran broodmare bands and had horse permits. Well, those got removed when the law went into effect.
Okay.
But the horses were still there. And then because it was so new, neither the BLM nor anyone knew how or what to do. So they sort of sat in limbo. So this one particular family up by Farson, Wyoming, they got 2,500 head of horses in a gather because of the amount of mares that they had run previously. And out of that, my uncle bought 800 of those horses.
Oh my goodness.
And we bought 600 from him.
Wow.
And they were all yearlings, 2s and 3s.
Okay.
Except one semi-load of older studs that we had to take. They were, everywhere up to 7 and 8 years old.
Wow. Okay.
But
now, is that on the older end for trading or training?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I would think, like with humans, when we learn something younger, it takes a little less time to figure it out. I would think an older Mustang would take longer if possible at all.
Exactly. Yeah.
The wild and never touched.
You're exactly right. The older they are, just the more time and effort it takes to get. Not that you can't. The problem is a lot of people don't have the skill set, number one, or the time commitment, number two. And I get a lot of calls. A lot of people, they want 6, 7, 8-year-old horses.
Oh, wow.
Because they think that.
We're talking about the Mustang class. I'll talk about, the Spirit of the Cimarron, the one that was in the movie, and a couple of others, Misty of Chincoteague, but I want the factual Mustangs as well. And the famous ones like Picasso and Cloud and things like that, the kids are just, whoa, we want to see that. And I asked a couple of kids in another class, I said, well, what would you want to know? And everyone said, how do I get my hands on a Mustang? How do regular people train a Mustang? And I said, well, I wouldn't. And we've broke a few horses, and my dad trained horses and whatnot when I was younger. But I think I would be baffled at a actual wild horse. So I think that's what they're so curious about is where you get those skills. So you said you were a horse person before, and then how did you get from there to Bureau of Land Management and getting these larger quantities?
Well, my two sons at the time, they were 12 and 13.
Okay.
And they wanted to, and they'd been riding the whole time, but they wanted to start a colt.
Okay.
So I thought, well, heck, let's just go get a couple of BLM colts. That would be a good place for them to start. So we went to an adoption, and the BLM man that was running the adoption, he and I got to talking, and we knew some of the same people and whatnot. And then he, out of the clear blue, he said they're going to put out a contract to gentle these 6 to 10-year-old horses. And at that time, they had been trying the deal where they would run them in a chute, fill the chute full of grain, and then people would pet them because they were totally immobilized. And that was just I don't know how someone even thought that up. It is so bizarre and so unnatural. But anyway, they would put them in the chute, fill them full of grain, and pet them all over. Then they'd drain the grain away, let them out, and couldn't figure out why they couldn't get their hands back on them. It's like, well,
Right.
anyway, so they sent me the contract.
Okay.
I bid on it, got it. We set up the krills, and that original deal was, like I say, it was all 6 to 10-year-old horses, and they sent me everything from 6 to 18.
Wow.
And they had to get them to where I could catch them, lead them, and load them in a trailer. And they had to be individually penned and individually worked, of course. And so we built a set of pins and a big round pin, and just went to working them. Worked most of them on horseback because it was just safer.
Right.
I was a lot younger then. I mean, if I had to do it today at 63, I would just say, no, thank you. I'm not interested.
That's what
But
happens, isn't it?
yeah, it does.
Logic overtakes the body.
Yeah. My dad always said that age will do what religion never could.
Yes.
But so out of those, and it was like a 60-day contract.
Okay.
And what we found out there was 30% didn't make the contract requirements in that 30-day time frame.
Okay. That
Now,
seems pretty quick.
yeah, would they have made it in another 60 or 90 days? Possibly. Some
Okay.
of them, no, absolutely not. They would have never made it. There was, and so when those horses met the contract requirements, then the BLM would come and get them and just take them back to Rock Springs and put them out with all the others. And I was like, why are you paying me to do that? And then you just go turn them back in there. So the guy that I worked with out of Cheyenne, super good guy. He said, well, what do you think? I said, why don't we take him to some adoptions? So long story short, out of 60, 45 met the contract requirements.
Okay.
37 of them got adopted.
Nice.
None stayed.
None stayed with you?
With the adopters.
Oh.
Almost every single horse got returned at some
really
time. Some of them within 5 days. That was the shortest turnaround time.
Oh my goodness. So what do you
drove in
relate
the
that
middle of the
to?
night. People did not realize what they were getting. Just because I could lead them, brush them off, handle their feet, load them in and out of my trailer and stuff. What people didn't realize is, and I heard it said one time really, really well, there's a guy by the name of Tom Hagwood that won the Mustang Million with a horse he called Merv, who was like 7 or 8 years old. And a lady, Tom and I were sitting visiting at Douglas, Wyoming at the state fair. And she said, can I ask you a question, Mr. Hagwood? And he goes, yeah, sure. She says, how does Merv do with time off? And he looked her right in the eye and he goes, I don't know. He's never had any since I've picked him up.
Right.
He said, I catch him first thing in the morning and saddle him. He said, I unsaddle him last thing at night, every day, day after day after day.
Wow.
And so that was the same scenario with these older horses. I only worked with them 8 days a week. And I started early in the morning and I quit late at night. And they got worked every single day.
Right.
And when you quit that routine and got out of that, especially with a 10-year-old horse, it took him less time to revert than it took me time to get him to where he was at that day.
Wow.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. So the wild part of it was still in them, and you have to kind of have the constant. And I talk to my own kids about relationship with your horse. You have to bond with them, even a domestic horse. So I can't imagine one that has never known people to be, oh, sure, I'll follow you right along. I think you're right. The consistency and relationship, I think, be key.
And the wild horse will develop a bond. Like, it's unbelievable how they'll get so bonded to you that I can't touch them.
Wow.
And vice versa. So like here working with them, my 2 sons work with me, and then on most normal years, whatever that is, which we'll never see that again, but
right.
We'll hire 1 or 2 kids to work in the summer. And so we make it a point for everybody to switch around, and you go get this horse today, I'll get that one, and
sure.
whatnot. Because even the young ones, we'll get to where they know exactly who's coming, they know who's going to feed them, you know, and you get the consistency going, which you need, but you also have to break it up
Right.
and change,
Do,
adapt.
do you think that they are smart? Well, I don't want to use the term smarter, but I think smarter because they've had to survive. They have a different level of intelligence than a domestic horse.
They certainly have a different level of self-preservation,
Sure.
which most horses, all horses, work off of that. Like a good friend of mine told me quite a few years ago, and I've never forgotten it. He said, every single issue you have with your horse can be directly related to that horse's sense of self-preservation being threatened at some level. He said,
Sure.
I don't care if it's a Mustang or a domestic horse, because he said, that's how horses operate.